keeping in mind that larger projects are available, but I'm thinking that a lot of the audiences in smaller business that want to know how they can become more efficient or implement energy, renewable energy projects, and we can certainly help with either one. Next slide. To date, we've done well over 300 projects, about probably closing in on $150 million now, and we're probably 5th in the nation behind Connecticut's Green Bank, California, Ohio, and Texas and Minnesota are kind of neck and neck. We go back and forth between who's 4th. But being a Minnesotan, I'll be conservative and claim 5th for now. I know the Texans will claim 4th. They're not as Minnesota nice as we are. Then significant energy savings, insignificant amount of BTU saved. Over a half a trillion BTU saved annually. I know Peter Lindstrom at our meeting earlier with Kuchaching County this week mentioned that that's like taking a small town of about 16,000 people offline, off of the grid. So it's a significant amount of energy savings, and it's also a great job creator. Not many of the projects that we've worked on say actually create or retain jobs, but there are significant amount of construction jobs related to it. And the projects that we did create jobs, and an example would be a melting arc furnace at a foundry, where they would come in on Sunday night, flick a switch, and the furnace would be ready at 8 a.m. The new furnace had a 20-minute startup, and that allowed the business to add a second shift and then a third shift. So they actually added about 50 jobs for that business because they became more efficient. Next slide. So in focusing on small businesses, of those 300 plus projects, 250 of them have been for under $250,000. So smaller projects. The lion's share of those have been solar related. And we have talked other renewable projects such as wind or geothermal. We haven't funded any yet, but certainly are interested in doing that. The ones that got the furthest along were a couple of geothermal projects near the boundary waters, but we wound up not funding those for whatever reason. So that's about $40 million of projects in these smaller areas. And the reason for these businesses to go forward with these projects is it really is an immediate positive cash flow. The energy saved or produced is something greater than what their assessment payment's going to be. So it's immediate positive cash flow. And then on these solar projects, it is a no-cost marketing investment. We see a lot of small businesses that want to show that they're green, want to implement renewable energy projects, and show their customers that they are green. And for those solar projects, the PACE being a special assessment, the first payment is going to be the May 15th of the following year. And so on these solar projects, they can file their tax return, get this year 26% investment tax credit, next year a 22% investment tax credit, and depreciate the entire system before they need to make a payment. Plus, they've been producing energy for a significant period of time. So we see anywhere from a 40 to 60% or 40 to 50% of the cost of the project that they get back before they need to make their first payment, truly making it an immediate cash flow investment. Next page. I think some examples, are probably the best way to show what we're doing. And this was a small business. This is in St. Paul on Payne Avenue. When this entrepreneur got into this project. Payne Avenue was on a downward slide, and she really helped turn that downward slide around, and there's been a significant amount of investment in buildings and improving buildings. So that second floor was just unused space, and because she put in new HVAC units, she was able to have a community space up there. I don't suppose it's been used too much lately, but it is it will be used this summer, I'm sure. And it had been used. This project was about 3-4 years ago. Next one. YWCA of St. Paul, again, rooftop HVAC units, $245,000, and immediate positive cash flow. Their energy savings was definitely less than their payment. We also did the YMCA in Mountain Iron, the Virginia YMCA, but in Mountain Iron, we did do a similar project. I believe that was HVAC units as well, rooftop HVAC units. Next. This is a funeral home, a Hmong-owned funeral home, and they wanted to, again, show that they were environmentally conscious and wanted to show their customers that they're investing in renewable energy projects. So this was a $193,000 project for them. Next. This is a woman-owned and operated cleaning service. They service a lot of the higher-end restaurants and hotels, and also I think some of the medical hospitals in their cleaning process. And this was an abandoned building that they took over and really needed some significant investment in lighting and HVAC and motors. So we did fund $400,000 in that project. Apadana is a minority-led organization, and they wanted to implement a solar project. So about $105,000 solar project. And that's an interesting fact too, is that the first solar projects that we implemented, they were 40 kW systems. You can kind of see the size of what a 40 kW system looks like. It's a fairly large system. But when we first started doing these, the cost of a 40 kW system was about $180,000. This one was $105,000. But we're seeing applications now that are coming in about $90,000. So the cost of these solar systems have been cut in half. So what I like to say is the investment tax credit really did do what it was intended to do, is to start getting the volume of these systems up there and bringing the cost of the systems down. A very successful track record for them. This was the Minnesota Cameroon community, a nonprofit, owns this building. You can see those doors. This is an ancient building. And now those are the doors that the horses used to go through and bring in the wagons for the fire department. Anyhow, they wanted to connect to the district energy system there, and there's a $250,000 investment for them. And the way that they were heating it before was a portable electric boiler that was heating it, and their cooling was non-existent. So it's a really good project for them. Okay. And Northgate, this is Jamez Staples, and his concept is that he's working with kids in North Minneapolis to teach them to become solar installers. And so they actually have the system on the roof of their training facility, and then he's training kids to become solar installers. It's just a great story. Next. This is one close to you guys up in Bemidji, Air Corps Aviation, a nonprofit, and they had some really bad lighting, and so we improved their lighting. significantly. I think we did some, maybe some insulation on that project too. But you can see a $25,000 investment and absolutely positive cash flow for that nonprofit organization. They repair World War II planes. Very cool organization. Another one that's in the Northland, Lake Country Vet Clinic, $32,000 smaller scale solar project. Absolutely wanted their clients to see how they were really supporting renewable energy. Okay. Winona Rental, another solar project, a larger one. You can see there's quite a few panels there, but I think Peter Lindstrom in his presentations usually has a quote from a lot of these people. Then they really do say how easy the process was and how happy that they went through it. Deneen Pottery, a manufacturer of pottery in St. Paul, and they really went big. I mean, they had a big roof, and so they filled it with solar. And I think that in this one, they probably had a roof that was older, and so we financed the repair and replacement of the roof as it was needed. And when you have a new roof, that's absolutely the time to put a solar array up. Next. $34,000 Paul's Handyman service in Red Wing. Just a solar project that's supplying most of the electric needs for this smaller business. I'm sure Paul's probably the only employee, but he wanted to be green. Okay. I think the last example of a project is Cliff Dweller. I know it says $119,000 of solar, but we actually put new doors, and I'm not sure about windows, but we definitely put new doors on the units, and so another efficiency project. So yeah, we can combine efficiency projects with renewable projects. This is a great example, and I'm going to close with that example because it really ties into the IRRRB's BER program, because they utilized it, both of our programs in combination, and it worked out extremely well for them. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Peter before we move on to Vince and Whitney? Alrighty, I will stop sharing, Whitney, and give Vincent the power, correct?
That's what we're gonna try.
All right.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, Vince gets ready there. Just want to say thanks for having us today. I'm Whitney RIdlon, Community Development Representative and Grant Administrator at the IRRRB, and I'm joined by Vince Meyer with AEOA, who's the Program Administrator of the BER Business Energy Retrofit Grant Program. This grant program's been a partnership that's been going on since 2013 between the IRRRB, who funds the program, and AEOA, who administers the program. I just want to reiterate what Pete said about the opportunity to leverage BER and PACE together for the right projects. We've been talking about this for a couple years between us, and we've been seeing a few projects take off, but the more that know about this, the better. So with that, I'll just pass it on to Vince to highlight some projects that have occurred right here in Itasca County. And feel free to jump in with any questions along the way. So,
Thanks, Whitney. All right, so the Business Energy Retrofit Program, it's designed for, of course, energy-related upgrades to existing businesses to help both with their costs of improving and also their utilities. How the grant works is 1/3 up to $20,000 is eligible if the applicant's approved for the program. Little history with the program, like Whitney had mentioned, you know, we started off in 2013 with a pilot in Hibbing, and then went TAA wide in 2014. And since then, we've done over 360 projects. 6 million in IRRRB grant funding has been dispersed, with over $25 million investments from the business owners. We primarily do the projects downtowns, but every now and then we do get some rural businesses participating. We also encourage leveraging funds, such as Small Cities Deed, PACE. Peter had mentioned the YMCA project in Mountain Iron. I have some before and after pictures of that business leveraging those funds, and also the, you know, the Cliff Dweller, as Pete mentioned. There's always the rebate options. Most utility providers have rebates for these energy improvements, reducing the out-of-cost expense for the businesses. And at the end of the day, we want the businesses to save the most and get the most for their energy-related upgrades. Some project example specifics. Lighting is a big one. Low-hanging fruit is what we call it in the energy world. Not only are we reducing energy, but in the case of the upper picture, small manufacturing in Chisholm, we've improved the lighting drastically. So both production and health and safety is also a benefit with upgrading the lights to a more brighter and less efficient, or more efficient lighting. On the bottom, we got some pole lighting at Edwards Oil, reducing the wattage and still saving money and producing 3 times the amount of lights. So it's a win-win with lighting. And as Pete mentioned with the solar, of how the costs have been driven down so much, it's the same with the LED technologies. Storefronts are also eligible. Here we got one on Main Street, downtown Hibbing, where the business owner billed a suit for the tenant and put a new storefront on for him, participating in the BER program. Roofing and insulation is also eligible. Here we got liquor store in Chisholm, Keyboard Liquors, going from an inefficient leaky roof to a more efficient rubber EPDM membrane that'll last another 25, 30 years. Doubling the insulation as well. So we'll get into the roofing aspect and the insulation aspect of the BER eligibilities, because roofing really isn't energy related, but without a roof, you don't have a business. HVAC. So here we have an old swamp cooler in a little floral shop downtown Virginia, where the business upgraded to a mini split system, getting rid of that prehistoric cooling system. Getting charged for water in and water out running it is very inefficient. And now the business has an option to use heat in the shoulder seasons, reducing the steam costs of heating that building. Here's the YMCA and Mountain Iron that the business also participated with PACE, leveraging funds. More on the larger side of the HVAC, but still eligible. Those are big ticket items, big energy savings. Some businesses in Hibbing and Virginia still have the steam systems, municipal steam, which we're slowly phasing out because of the inefficiencies and systems failing, and upgrading to a high efficient boiler is eligible. Then lastly, renewable energy. Had a project up in Orr, a resort, utilizing the BER program to put in a little solar system, both for producing energy, reducing utilities, and for advertising. I've been getting a lot of interest in resorts, because folks are seeing how renewable is important and they like it. Itasca County specific with the business energy retrofit program. We've done over 70 projects, almost $1 million in grant funding. And then the businesses have invested $6.3 million with those projects. Here we have Bender's Shoes. They participated in the BER program a couple years. Businesses can apply each year, excuse me, but we'll get into the scoring aspect of it. You get better scoring if you're new to the program. So previously participated, you're less likely to get another grant. They've done everything: roofing, HVAC, lighting, storefront. Big difference between the two, original and the new look. On Pokegama, there's the old theater that Rapids Brewing bought and did some serious innovating. They invested a lot of money and they leveraged multiple resources with this project, but it turned out very nice. Specific to BER, you know, with the $20,000 max, just insulating the place, they utilized the entire grant amount. Here we have the old Bridgman's Embers on Main Street in Rapids, which is now the Thousand Lakes Outfitters. There again, they utilize BER, roofing, insulation, HVAC, lighting, windows, doors. That was a nice project. Turned out really good. PND Sewing. This business owner didn't know what to do and was looking for all the help in the world, and she completely redid the place. Very happy with the program and how it supported more or less not having to move and rebuild. So she's still in the same spot, loves it, looks great. Row Funeral Home, what they did there was some accessibility doors, new heated sidewalk, boiler system, lighting, and the big ticket item was a new roof. They also participated in the Small Cities Deed program and was able to leverage some good funds, reducing their out-of-pocket expenses. Apologize for the pictures. It was raining. This is the ICTV here, windows, doors. They went from a flat roofing system to a truss system. They were able to add more insulation. Another nice before and after project, utilizing an existing building rather than rebuilding. In Bovey, we got Bob's Country Market, very big equipment upgrade. There they upgraded their compressors. They're getting rid of the open face coolers, going with the zero zone door system, reducing their monthly bills, $4,000. Casper Construction, they're one of the first ones. Another example of not having to tear down and rebuild with fixing up what they had. Good example of a lighting project. They also insulated, air sealed, new doors, windows, and HVAC. And then Sandstrom's Food Distribution, loading dock here. There again, they were working in the dark. Low-hanging fruit. They updated all their lights throughout the entire building. Turned out really nice. Some program specifics. There is an application fee that is due if your application is approved. So if you have any businesses that are interested in applying, there is no risk. It's completely free. The $500 is collected at the time of initial inspection. And at that time, I take pictures of what this businesses want to do, what they want to upgrade. So we have documentation before and after to justify the grant. And then of course at the initial, whether it's pre-construction conferences, just more further program discussion. The big ticket item though is prevailing wage applies for this program. That being said, contractors need to bid accordingly, meeting those wages. Recently, we've upped the employee count to 100. On previous years, it's been 50 or less, trying to keep it small to mid-size, but now we've upped it to 100. And we like to keep projects at a minimum of $7,500 or more. More for what's best for the client. Another requirement is we need either a letter from the bank, lender, or any type of documentation proving that these businesses have their funding in place. And then we also offer an advance program where a lot of times businesses are too busy to go get bids. They don't know what to do. AEOA will help them through the entire process, document everything that's inefficient, get pricing on what should be updated, and then also provide payback estimated rebates before they pick what they want to do. 9 times out of 10, the businesses know what they want to do. A lot of questions that I receive from businesses if they could do the work. The minimum requirement is to be registered with the Department of Labor and Industry as a contractor. If you are not that, the answer is no. Granted, there's some equipment reimbursement options where, you know, if you're replacing a movable item with something more efficient, of course, you don't have to be licensed or registered to do that. So there are some exceptions. I get a lot of questions about prevailing wage, and with prevailing wages, it's county specific set rate of pay based on their wage classification, whether it's an electrician, carpenter, roofer, etc. And then roofing. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a cap on roofing, 1/3 up to 10,000 for roofing specifically. A lot of times with these flat roofs, the roofing contractor wants to increase the EPDM and the polyiso insulation to code, and more times than not, that insulation is half the roofing cost. So ultimately, you could combine the two and look for the full $20,000 grant on a $60,000 project, or 1/3. When can I apply? So I'd say daily I get interest with this program. I encourage folks to apply whenever they can. One being no risk. The only thing that they got to understand is that work can't begin before they're approved. How it's been for the last 3 years is the board gets together, approves their budgets typically in March, and then the fiscal year begins July 1, and that's when we open the 2-week application window. And then after that, we score the applications. 1, if they've participated before. 2, if they're in a downtown Main Street setting or corridor. If they have their bids ready to go. And if it's a city that have not participated before. We like to help out all cities. So and next we have the Downtown Building Rehab Program. This has been going on for 2 years now. Pilot was in 19. And what this program is we call it BER on steroids. But what it does is it helps folks out with code-related items, handicap accessibility items, structural items, general construction relating to code compliancy. And then there's also help with professional fees such as architects, structural engineers, etc. This program's a lot more competitive because you could get 1/3 up to 50,000. So it's not as a simple application as the business energy retrofit program. We like to see good business plans, vacant, dilapidated buildings being repurposed and completely redone, and stuff like that. Other things, sprinklers, that's a big one. And then the low-cost elevators these days. Those are also eligible for the DBR program. There again, similar requirements for the DBR program as the BER. Of course, we need to know if you have the money or not. Private or nonprofits are eligible. Must be used to address code compliant upgrades. Must be located in downtown. That's the big one. And then of course, they can't be started prior to the initial inspection and approval. Itasca specific, here we have an old building in Bovee, the old bottle shop, where it was on the verge of coming down, and the business owner reached out and utilized both the business energy retrofit program and the downtown building rehabilitation program, of which I'll get more into later as far as using both. But here's some before pictures, and here are some after pictures. That was a big project. There's a couple other ones around the TAA. Here we have an old building in downtown Crosby, which is now an ice cream shop. Turned out really nice. There they did asbestos removal, electrical plumbing, ADA accessibility, to utilize the maximum grant of $50,000. Here we have the Northland Cap Management in downtown Virginia. Another great before and after. They invested a lot of money in this place, keeping the original footprint on Silver Lake. There they electrical plumbing. They actually installed an elevator in this place too. So all of that's eligible for the DBR program. There again, application fee with this program gets processed at the time of awarding. So there again, no risk in applying. At the initial inspection, collect the app fee, talk about the program, how it works, setting up pre-constructions with the contractors. Because ultimately with your application, you're submitting in the estimates of what you want to move forward with. So at the time of approval, we're ready to award the work. So we could do a lot of things at that initial inspection. Prevailing wage applies. And then of course, we need verification of that, the 2/3 or match being available. Some questions that I get asked. There again, you can apply at any time. However, July 1st is when the fiscal year begins, and that's when the application window begins. It varies year to year. It's typically the second week of July. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot more competitive. So we look at the applications a lot more thoroughly because of the potential chance of receiving up to $50,000. And it's scored based on the prominence in the historical value, if it's visible on Main Street, in a downtown setting, the code compliance issues are clearly identified. We like to see business expansion and retention, old vacant buildings completely being renovated is a bonus with the scoring. And of course, with both DBR and BER, they're shovel ready. So we want to get those projects awarded and projects started as soon as possible, within 30 days. So the big question, can we use both programs together? Yes. But we can't double dip. And what that means is on the business energy retrofit side of things, you could upgrade, let's use exterior doors, for example. And then on the DBR side, you could technically do ADA compliant doors, but we can't use them both. So on the bigger projects, it's easy to pick and choose what's eligible, and as long as they don't cross paths with each other. And then also I get businesses who are requesting funds for demo or redevelopment through the IRRRB, which it's eligible, but there again, we can't overlap the programs. That is all I have for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was a really good presentation. Does anybody have any questions at all for Vince, Whitney, or Peter?
A few. So I think the first one I have, you talked a little bit about the eligibility requirements, and maybe I missed it, but did you talk about nonprofits? Do these businesses have to be for-profit businesses?
No, I did mention that on the DBR side. Nonprofits are eligible.
Okay, and for the BER as well as the PACE, all three programs? Okay.
Yep, the YMCA there is a good example.
Okay.
Mountain Island. And the Air Force or the airplane rehab site in Bemidji is another good example of a nonprofit utilizing it.
Okay. And then you talked about a minimum size in BER. Are there minimum sizes for PACE and some of the other programs that you would consider?
You know, we like to have a little larger than 7,500, but in some of those examples, we were, I think we've done a couple of projects in Ely that were in that $15,000 range. So bring us a project and we'll figure out how to get it done.
Okay. The other one is related to projects as they kind of overlap. I'm working on a project right now. It's got a lot of moving parts, and this agency requires that you must have absolute approval before you start any work. How does that work with these programs? Do you have to have the award signed on the dotted line before you can start doing any work, or could it be paid in sort of retroactively as they're doing the work?
Well, I think on the BER it needs to be approved before. I'll let Vince talk about that. But on ours, it's usually better to not start. We also have the prevailing wage rules. And so if you're starting, then you need to be reporting the prevailing wage on a weekly basis. So it's generally best to be approved and get financed before you start the project.
So to answer your question on the BER and the DBR side of life, this year we've kind of made an exception as far as urgency. If I get there and document the building and do my initial inspection and have those items documented, and let's say the contractor is going to be starting a week before application approval, then there is a little wiggle room.
Okay.
But it doesn't guarantee funding, you know?
Right. I'm just, some of these programs are but for, and if you have this funds, then you make one mistake and order one item, and then, oh shoot, all bets are off, right? And I think that's what I'm thinking of here. In this case, for example, if you came out to do a BER inspection and we already knew we were going to order lighting fixtures and these different things, and we knew there was an 8-week lead time on this special light, right? We might want to get that order placed knowing you were coming to do the inspection and let us know all of the items that would be eligible. That's kind of what comes to mind. Sure. And what I've been told with a couple of state programs I'm doing is like, you can't place any orders, you can't be, don't accidentally tell someone you're going to do something, because then boom, you're not going to be eligible for this grant. Yeah, so I'm just wondering how serious that part of it is.
we're flexible on a case by case.
Okay.
And I would say PACE is definitely flexible on it as well. The main concern is the prevailing wage, but plenty of times we have funded a lot of projects on a retroactive basis.
Okay. And for all the programs, is it required to have 3 bids from construction folks, like there are requirements with the demo grant with IRRRB?
Pete, you want to take that, or?
We have no requirements of multiple bids.
So with the BER and the DBR program, we have a lot of businesses who have their go-to electricians or HVAC contractors. And the last thing that we want to do is step on anybody's feet to where if a second or third competitive bid comes in lower, we're not going to enforce it. So as a coordinator and inspector, I always encourage it, but it is not a requirement. We do analyze the bids carefully, so we want to make sure it's apples to apples, all said and done.
Right, right.
Just to add on that, Vince has a lot of construction experience, and as the grant administrator of this program, he's able to tell if a bid is off, right? That's part of his role. Okay.
And when you're talking about the DBR, sorry, I'm totally monopolizing questions, guys. I promise this is my last one. I'll let someone else go. I have a whole list here. So when you're in processing the DBR, you talked about, like, the pictures you showed were pretty dramatic. Like, these buildings are in real disrepair. And I'm thinking of our neighbor building here where there's a potential tenant that's looking at purchasing the building and they want to renovate just to make a downtown sort of food establishment. It's not in total disrepair. It just needs to be renovated. Would that type of program qualify because it's in the downtown corridor?
Definitely.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I'll pause and let somebody else ask questions.
Anybody else have any questions?
You know, I'd like to talk about kind of the flow of funds, in that I'm not sure on the building. We can only fund energy related, so it needs to show less than a 20-year payback from the cost of what we're funding to the expected energy savings, and you can factor expected increases in energy costs into that calculation. Generally, it's not an issue with these HVAC, lighting, motors, compressed air. It's almost never an issue. And the analysis that the utility does on the payback, that gives us all the information that we need in their process of determining the rebates. As far as the flow of funds, once we approve it, we'll fund 100% of the part of the project that we're financing. And I know that most of the grants come in once the project has been completed. We have flexibility on the term of that financing. So if you wanted to, let's just use some numbers, a $20,000 project, we'll fund at $20,000, and if BER was coming in at $4,000 of the cost of the project, then the building owner could decide, okay, we only want that $4,000 for a short period of time. We don't want to be paying that over a 10-year period. So we have flexibility on the term of the financing. Generally, our financing right now is fixed at 4.25% for 10 years. We have no origination fee, no upfront fee, and there's no prepayment penalty either. You can pay it off anytime. I think that one of those Ely projects was we just funded it last year, maybe the year before, and I just found out from St. Louis County that they're looking at paying it off. I think because the energy savings were so good that they're able to pay it off, and perfectly happy to have things paid off early. But anyhow, the point is that we always strive to have no money upfront required from the business, and that the payment is going to be something less than the energy savings. So immediate positive cash flow. That's our objective with every one of these projects.
I just would like to follow up. You kind of look at the projects Pete's funded and the projects Vince has funded, and just so much more opportunity for these two programs to both be utilized up in northeastern Minnesota. So
Yeah, thank you, Whitney, for introducing us to PACE. And it took us a little while, but we got it in the county and they were very supportive of it. So we're excited to have them here available for our businesses. And it sounds like you're doing amazing work in Itasca County already, Vince and Whitney, and we truly appreciate that. I think and hope that maybe in early 2021, we can look at doing some kind of promotion with you guys. And we could obviously do the payment. We have some running partners here locally to really exemplify your programs and let people know that it's there, and really put some emphasis on the PACE program being here as well now. And so I'll reach out to you guys separate from that early in January and try to come up with some great press releases and things that we can do to really promote the programs, because I'm really excited to see. We've actually used the BER ourselves. Terry managed that for us here, and it definitely was a huge benefit to us.
All righty, anybody else have any more questions? All righty, well, thank you to Whitney and Vince and Peter for your time. Again, the links are both in the chat where we can find the videos after. And we just thank you again for this opportunity to hear from you, and we look forward to sharing this information with others.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having
Bye,
me.
guys.
I know.
Thank you.